So, as we all know, Wuthering Waves has had a series of really good updates, and obviously Kuro Games has a very good past and like rapport of listening to a lot of the, audience. That's why the whole devs listened meme is a thing. And well, I mean, yeah, Mr. Pokey kind of started that thing with the whole, devs listen thumbnail, and now, it's become a thing in the community overall because the devs do listen. They do listen to the audience, and well, Saintontas has put out a video today called Tacet Fields Need a Buff. And it's only gotten 14 dislikes. I do look at dislikes more than I do at likes just to see how controversial it is. And it seems like the majority of people agree with this. I think the 14 are just, usual people that just don't like Saintontas for some reason. And yeah, so I'm very interested to see why Tacet Fields need a buff. I mean, they're alright. They're usually like a thing that you kind of farm with. I'm pretty sure that's what the Tacet Fields are, right? The ones where you go in and you farm like the artifact, or not the artifact stuff, but the echo stuff. I think they're fine. I mean, I think they are pretty easy, but I also think that it shouldn't be too hard just for like the factor that, it's supposed to be something that you're supposed to farm. But let's see what he has to say about this.
Wuthering Waves players have been in a love and hate relationship with one system in particular. Echoes. As one of the most unique takes on gear we've seen in gacha gaming, with mobs across the overworld dropping endgame equipment, a lot of players' complaints were instead focused on another part of the equation.
I mean, I think that whenever Echoes came out, it was a very refreshing thing to see, especially with a lot of the stuff to do with like Genshin and Honkai and things like that in the past, where the relic system and the artifact system just seems kind of monotonous, and they haven't really changed much to do with it, to be honest. Now, Honkai Star is a different kind of thing. They have kind of changed up some things with like the Divergent universe and stuff like that to try and make it more exciting, but with Genshin Impact and stuff, we're still there farming domains over and over and over again. So Echoes are definitely a very cool addition to Wuthering Waves, and it seems like they did look at some of the artifact stuff in these other games, not just even Hoyoverse games, some other games as well. They've seen a lot of these grindy mechanics and thought, okay, we don't really want to turn it into something like this, so they've given us plenty of ways to get Echoes. And I think it is very, very easy to get Echoes because obviously, you've got stuff like Tacet Fields, which obviously we're talking about in this video, but also we've got other things. You literally just run around the world, collect them, which I think is a very fun way. And it means that you can passively kind of do it rather than just lock in and do Tacet Fields and stuff like that, which again, you can do if you want. And also you just get a ton of rewards to do with it as well. I think you also get some stuff in the mail, and from events you can actually redeem a couple of random echoes that just go into your inventory. So it seems like they're not entirely forcing you to pull for echoes, and I don't think I've spent hours and hours farming for this kind of stuff, which definitely feels a lot better than some of the other gacha games that I played in the past.
The experience and the tuners. It's clear that the measures Kuro took to solving these material shortages worked for most players. A little more than 5 months into the launch of the game, many have a wide variety of different characters armed to the teeth with a fair number of double crit rolls, fantastic ER, and whatever else you need to make your characters pop and demolish endgame content. By giving out so many of these materials across the game's events and achievements, they've solved one part of the problem.
Yeah,
However,
exactly. I think that's
something
that's something that they did really, really well. They noticed that maybe people aren't getting enough echoes, because I think that Kuro Games don't want to force you to do that monotonous grinding, which we see in a lot of games. And I think people had started to get a lot of characters, especially, because there are so many characters in the game now that they've been adding. They're like, oh crap, okay, maybe people need more options to get echoes. So they added it into events and stuff, and I think that's the main reason why Kuro Games do a lot of events, is to fix a lot of this stuff, because it can be easily fixed in an event, which is really good to see, because not only just echoes and things like that, but things like shell credits, things like talent materials or whatever kind of thing that, needs being added to the game, or there's a little bit that isn't enough in the game, they will add it to the, they'll add it in an event, so it's fixed.
From version 1.0 that we haven't seen updated at all, even though there have been plenty of opportunities to do so across the game's map expansions, and that's Tacet Fields and Sonata sets themselves. Grinding echoes for hours a day in the overworld was something that had a lot of appeal back in the early versions of the game, but as time has gone on and players' inventories are building up with locked pieces, this appeal has only gotten lower and lower. And for the average player, Tacet Fields and events are the main ways to get new echoes. It's safe to say there are a lot of opportunities for quality of life here, specifically for Tacet.
I think that as well, kind of farming echoes or getting more echoes has become less popular because people just don't need them anymore. like there is like a factor of maybe you need to get the perfect piece or whatever, but 9 times out of 10, a lot of people will be happy with just having a pretty good piece, and I think it's really, really easy to get that now. Obviously, with all of the kind of farming and stuff that you do from running around the world, and also maybe a bit of tacet field, maybe a bit of events, you're going to accumulate some of these kind of, echoes and stuff like that, which, again, with a lot of new characters and a lot of new, things coming out, you don't have many of them, to be honest. You have a couple of characters that you have some good artifacts on and that you use regularly. I say artifacts, sorry, echoes that you use regularly. And then after that, it's just like, okay, now what? You don't actually farm any of them. And then you start going on to, building up your talents, building up other stuff, which is, nothing to do with echoes.
Fields, and not just from increasing the rewards. Today we'll be diving into what exactly these opportunities are. Some tacet fields are strictly better than others, depending on the state of your account, and from a design perspective, their built-in restrictions don't make very much sense at all, especially given the relative freedom of choice players have across every other upgrade system in the game. Kuro's already simplified a lot when it comes to the open-world gacha RPG experience from Genshin Impact, but there are still some relics it wouldn't hurt to wash away. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button.
I definitely do think it's a very important thing to talk about as well. Obviously, there'll be a lot of people in the comments being like, oh, Saintontas is like doom posting or something like that, saying, there's nothing wrong with the ecosystem right now. But I definitely think it is important to talk about this stuff, just because we don't want it to end up like these games that have become so stale because they didn't change anything. So I think talking about it early on, even if, they don't make a change to the Echo stuff for a couple of versions or something like that, and Kuro Games think it's actually okay, I definitely think that it is important to talk about it at least, so that we have a chance of it getting changed, because as I said, Kuro Games know when to listen to people. They know that, people want changes, and they do that, whereas MiHoYo, they don't do it so much, and some of these other companies, they don't do it so much. So again, it is good, that Saintontas is actually talking about this and giving a kind of like criticism, but not being like overly negative about it. He's not saying, oh, Wuthering Waves is going to die because echoes, you can't get echoes as well, or tacet fields suck. He's not saying that. He's just being like, okay, well, maybe this could be improved, which I think is a definitely important topic to be talking about.
Attributes in Wuthering Waves weren't made equal, at least when it came to the design of tacet fields. There are some attributes, for some arbitrary reason, that can only be farmed from a single field, oftentimes with an accompanying Sonata set that isn't very much used to the player.
I haven't really used tacet fields that much, but I did notice that. I thought it was really weird how there was like certain elements and certain things, and that like maybe one tacet field you could only you could only get one of these elements or whatever, whereas in another you could actually get 2 of them.
Arrow is easily the biggest offender here, and was, in all honesty, one of the worst feeling tacet fields that any player could farm. That's because Jian was the first limited banner in the game, and there was no actual user of the Glacio set that Arrow is paired with, other than...
This will probably be much more of an issue for people as well now, because obviously Jian's had his rerun, and so it would be interesting to see if people are having issues with this tacet field or not, with the rerun character, because again, people have kind of accumulated all of these kind of artifacts and all these echoes, sorry. I keep calling them artifacts. I used to play Genshin, it's all in my head, there's artifacts, it's echoes. But yeah, Jian, he's come out recently, but a lot of people do have more echoes and just have them sat in their inventory. So maybe it's less of an issue now because they don't have to like kind of farm as much. Whereas early game, people were farming like crazy on tacet fields because again, they didn't have any of these kind of pieces. And also these events where they were actually giving out free kind of, echoes and stuff for characters, they didn't exist yet. So it will be interesting to see if, Gion players or new Gion players are struggling with this, or if this is still an issue.
Ling Yang, who was, and kind of still is, one of the worst DPS characters in the game. While tacet fields horribly inefficient if you farmed them the second they were unlocked at UL 39, it's where a lot of players are farming their echoes in the present. And now, with the re-release of Jian, a lot of players are starting to feel this pain again. However, Arrow's not the only Sonata set that's getting screwed over.
This field has an issue with the fact that the only good DPS you can use that field is Jeji, another limited 5-star. Oh damn. Okay.
especially generalist sets like Moonlit Clouds, which cannot be actively farmed
that's
unless
such
you're
a
willing to
weird
pick
set.
up Havoc damage pieces. These restrictions are extremely arbitrary and make a lot of sets and in turn limited characters feel far more inefficient than others, with a lot more waste and less opportunities for great encounters with RNG. The problems get even worse when you see how other attributes are getting treated. Attributes like Electro and Fusion are easily some of the best possible sets to farm, and had multiple limited releases right after another with Chong-Li and Zhongli Yao. You could farm for both of these characters with a single tacet field, and hitting multiple attribute
Yeah, again, whenever I was farming tacet fields, I thought that was a little bit strange, you know? The fact that whenever I think it was for Yinlin, and then I knew that Chong-Li was going to be a fusion damage character, so I was saving a lot of the fusion ones that I got from this tacet field as well. So it felt like weird that I could just get both of these on the same one, but for, say, another element of character, I couldn't. I definitely think that's like a kind of issue that they've got at the moment, that you can only do it with a certain like other one. They should either keep it like separate, or at least give you more options of different kind of elements and stuff you can actually like farm for.
Damage rolls on the right set was some of the greatest dopamine hits you could have in this game. These two sets even had other options as well, like Fusion with the healer set and Electro with the Glacial set, which begs the question, why are some tacet fields and attributes so much easier or better to farm than others? Wuthering Waves...
Yeah, that's a really weird thing. I don't even know if there's kind of any explanation to why they did this. Maybe they just thought it was like, oh, people are going to be going after fusion characters more, people are going to be going after electro characters more, or something like that. I don't know. But again, it's definitely something that needs to be kind of addressed and looked at, because as more players come in and as more characters come in, it's going to be like even more monotonous, and I definitely think it's going to be an issue. The fact that ER set is insanely good, as well as is so painful because you have to only farm for it with Havoc, which doesn't have a limited 5-star yet. Yeah, no. I can kind of understand that. Crow and Arrow tacet fields too. Yeah, exactly.
In its resource farming, did away with a lot of the inconveniences we had in Genshin Impact. You don't have to wait a specific day of the week to level a character. You don't have to crawl around the overworld just to grind money or experience. And you don't have the...
To be fair, that is a kind of cool thing that Wuthering Waves has improved on. You know, not having this kind of timed thing. That's one thing I really, really hate about Genshin Impact. Like, I still play it now and still farm stuff. But for example, I was building my Zealanin the other day, and I was like, okay, I want to kind of farm for some talent stuff. Like I farmed a lot of artifacts just because I wanted to get good ones, and it was a new artifact, you know, domain. And I was there farming them, and I was like, okay, time for talents now. And then I was like, oh yeah, I've got a ton of fragile resin and stuff like that. I'll use that today and get it. But then whenever I clicked on it, it was like, oh, sorry, yeah, you can't do this till like Thursday or something like that. And I was like, seriously? Like, I've got to wait till Thursday just to farm something. It's really weird how they kind of kept it behind the days. I can kind of like see why, because again, like, you only have a limited amount of space. But honestly, I just think you should let them pick whatever one they want, and then you can just farm it, because again, it's a like more enjoyable experience. And by like capping it to certain days, they are just kind of prolonging you playing the game, which is like Genshin Impact's ultimate goal. They want you to be playing this game as much as possible. They want you to be farming for these characters as much as possible. That's why the artifact system sucks, because again, you could be there for months and still not get the, you know, artifacts that you want, but also they keep you there longer because you got talents to do, which again are gated behind time. And then you've got the other like boss talents, which again are only weekly, and you can only get them, I think only 3 of them every week or something like that, which is something that Wuthering Waves does have. And I think that's a fine thing to have for bosses, because again, bosses are like, they're like much more rarer materials and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, you don't want people to be like mass farming them because they are supposed to be super rare. But I think with just like the standard like talent materials and stuff like that, if you've got the resin or if you've got the wave plates or whatever game you're playing, you should be allowed to do it. And I think that's what, you know, Wuthering Waves is doing. And is a really, really good improvement. And also with the ley lines as well, that's also a really good thing. Obviously, as you know, with in Wuthering Waves, there is just one guy that you go to, and you can do shell credits, to, you know, talent level ups, or no, not talent level ups, sorry. You do shell credits. Is it weapon level ups or accurate? You can get the level ups for your characters and stuff like that in one place, rather than going to these little clouds that are dotted around the map. You got to run around, and that's just another way that Genshin gets you to play the game longer. And it seems like Wuthering Waves definitely like respect your time a little bit more, because they know that, you know, there's a lot of gacha games out at the moment, and there's a lot of new ones coming out. And if you make a game like where you're supposed to be like super heavily invested in it, and play it for so long, people aren't going to play it. Now, Genshin obviously had the advantage of being like, hey, we're in COVID, you have no time, so you have like all the time, sorry, and so you're just going to play this game non-stop and be a like absolute loser and just like play it non-stop. But with Wuthering Waves, they don't have that luxury or anything like that, and they've like kind of acknowledged that, and that's why they respect your time a little bit more, so that you can go in and then obviously with the story quests, you can go in, play the story quest, and then kind of grind like different daily stuff and all this talent stuff, maybe in like an hour, and then leave the game. Like, they don't want you to stay for too long because, again, they know that someone is going to look at that and be like, nah, that's too big, that's too daunting for me. But with this, it's much more easier to get into. I still don't get why they added lingering tune echoes set into the game. Not many people use it. Maybe it's going to be something for the future. Again, it is a pretty new game, so they could just expand on that.
A headache of dealing with secondary boss materials to level up characters. Why not remove the frustration of good gear getting paired with gear you don't actually want? The fact of the matter is that there were a few lost opportunities with the multiple map expansions we've had since version 1.0.
We could have had
with all the
more
massive areas added with Mount Firmament and the Black Shores, Kuro could have added more tacet fields with even more blends of Sonata sets.
I didn't even think about that. That is a very interesting point. I think that they should have added more to some of those newer regions.
That's to even out the treatment of different attributes. There's no reason why in version 1.3 that Arrow, Spectro, and Havoc should only have one farmable tacet field when all of the other attributes have two. It would be an amazing gift to players to have more sets farmable alongside Moonlit Clouds or Rejuvenating Glow, especially when we've had the recent releases of Jeja and Shorekeeper and the very
Yeah, I definitely think there's like multiple ways like Kuro Games could go like around this. They could just like kind of change up, give the ability to change up what kind of elements you get from farming it. Or again, they could just add more around the map and to these newer locations, which we've had two so far, the Black Shores and Mount Firmament, so that they have like more areas to kind of do this stuff. And if you ever wanted to add more or like add different elements to the game, then you could always add it onto newer map expansions, which again, I think would definitely work.
Very likely upcoming rerun of Yinlin, who all use these sets. Lining up a new character release with tacet fields that benefit their intended teams would be an amazing incentive for players that isn't just adding materials right into their inventory. How fantastic would it have been for a Spectro and Moonlit Clouds tacet field to drop alongside Jeja, or an Arrow and Moonlit one for Jian? There are plenty of...
I definitely think as well, he brought up a good point there with like kind of giving players like different echoes and things like that. I think it is good that they do add echoes and give them to the players directly through events, through like rewards or whatever. It is good that they do that, and it does improve the overall like, experience that the player has. But if you do it too much, then you're just handing it to them, and it doesn't feel as good as like maybe, farming it a little bit. Like obviously I know it gets annoying farming it for way too long, but I think if you get like the right kind of time frame for that, I think it's totally fine, and it does kind of make the game feel a lot more like you're invested in it without being too invested in it.
Locations spread across the entirety of Mount Firmament and the Black Shores that could house these new tacet fields.
Yeah,
and
there's
there
so
are
much space.
Plenty of TDs roaming these areas. And Kuro could even increase immersion even more by incorporating their map-specific unique enemy designs across these tacet fields.
That would be
like
cool.
The red digital fragments we see in the Black Shores, or the holographic TDs in Mount Firmament.
This could be something that they add in the future though, we never know. Obviously it would have been nice if they did it with the original zone, but maybe they'll add it in the future, because again, it's not that hard to just add like a tacet field into some of the place. Maybe it breaks some kind of continuity stuff in terms of lore, but I don't think it'd be that bad. Lingering Tunes was added so you don't have to use 5-piece on characters, though it kind of got lost its use whenever 5-piece became so easy to get.
These areas are
Maybe it's gonna be
easily
used
some of
in
the
the future,
most
though.
beautifully designed in the game, but the fact of the matter is that there's no actual reason to go back to these sections of the map once you've completed exploration, other than the occasional daily quest or event. Giving players the opportunity to spend more wave plates in these new regions would be a fantastic way of highlighting their additions even.
It's better than farming in Genshin artifacts since the substat value is not fixed on random upgrades. Yeah, I definitely think the Wuthering Waves does do it better than Genshin. I know I say this a lot, like, ooh, Genshin's bad and stuff. Genshin isn't that bad, it's fine. Again, if you like that kind of stuff, then you can sit there and, farm artifacts forever. But I think Wuthering Waves definitely have taken a better kind of approach to it. And yeah, it kind of shows.
even more, as the only thing you can spend them on right now are boss challenges. Kuro's done an incredible job with their recent world design. Why not add more incentives to experience it through quality of life? At this point in the game, it is incredibly likely that a player has multiple 5-piece sets fully built for their roster, and with equipment completely shareable even in time-gated endgame content, that makes many of these existing tacet fields feel even more wasteful, especially when others give you the opportunity to build 2 characters at once. Even if you recycle unwanted echoes, most players will hold onto every single on-set attribute damage 3 cost. And as the months have gone by with no character to use them on, this inventory is building up. Of course, there's also the chance that Kuro has a lot of these updates lined up, but just for a future version. The cat is...
Again, there probably is going to be some kind of quality of life update or something that happens in the future, which ends up, you know, actually adding some of this. Now, I don't know if they're going to add tacet fields to, like, these new regions, like to Mount Firmament, to Black Shores, or whatever, because, again, they've already been established maps, and they would have to do quite a big update for that. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if they did do it.
Out of the bag with their most recent developer Twitter post, as the version following 1.4 will introduce a brand new area that's defined as a true co-creation between Kuro and the player community. It wouldn't be a surprise at all if this new region introduced a lot of these suggested changes, new materials, and new, more specific Sonata sets. But that doesn't mean our older areas can't get a little bit of love too. Kuro has the opportunity to trade 2 birds for 1 stone here, get more attention on the amazing work they've done across Mount Firmament and the Black Shores, and get rid of the arbitrary restrictions across Sonata sets that make some of them feel a lot worse to farm than others.
Yeah, it definitely does feel like a little bit of a waste whenever you add areas like the Black Shores and Mount Firmament, which looks so good, but then you only use it just for like a quest and then you're done. Maybe you go back for the boss or whatever, but apart from that, that's it. Like, I think definitely adding some tacet fields and adding just stuff to do over there, other than just like boss out, I definitely think that's going to help people come back to the game, and it's going to make much more sense for these new regions to be there, because else why are these new regions even there, you know? Obviously it was important to the story, but apart from that, that's the only purpose that they serve.
It's a win-win, to me at least. Let me know how you'd feel about a change like this, and if you think it's worth suggesting on the next player's survey. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.
That was a really good video. It covers a lot of really important stuff that is going on. I think that adding tacet fields and, you know, making them better overall in the game is going to definitely improve the quality of life. It was something that I never really thought about or anything like that, because again, I'm someone that doesn't really use tacet fields that often, but whenever you know, talk about it, and with the amount of characters that are coming out recently, I definitely think it's going to make a positive change if they do something like this. And I can see why barely anybody disliked this, is because, you know, it was a very good point that they brought up. The downside of the new region is the wave plates, honestly. Black Shores has 1 boss, Mount Firmament has 1 weekly boss. Yeah, exactly. Question, why do I need to farm Echo Set if I already have double crit in all attributes Echo Set? I could just switch to my old Echo Set and old character to new character. Yeah, I mean, you can do that if you want, and obviously, you know, some people just like to be perfectionists whenever it comes to like substats. So people will just keep going and going and going, even if they've got a pretty decent piece. Now me, I do kind of like do that on certain characters, and I do see the kind of enjoyment in getting a really good substat on a character, because again, you have like almost the best type of that character. But at the same time, you know, if you don't want to do that, I think that's totally fine, and maybe it's less of an issue for people like that. But I do see why a lot of people are having, you know, trouble with tacet fields and things like that, because again, it does kind of suck that it's kind of limiting, and it kind of it's kind of biased towards certain elements, which isn't great. Yeah, very good video from Saintontas. If you guys want to go like that, I will leave it in the chat, and it will also be down in the link in the description of this video. If you're watching this on the second channel, we're live on Twitch right now, so definitely come see us, come say hi. We're going to be doing more stuff like this and like more Wuthering Waves stuff. So yeah, very good video, and that's about it.